No matter your age, your plan for retirement can start today. From the News Channel 5 Network, this is the Retirement Report.
Good morning. Welcome to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. We're going to be talking about a variety of things today. The main topic is going to be on estate planning. However, I did want to touch on some things before we get started in that, and that is some recent articles. One of them, this one, state pension funding gap, and this is talking about a shortfall of about 1.24, about $1.25 trillion shortfall, meaning that our states don't have enough money set aside to pay the obligations they have to their retirees, okay, in the form of these pensions. And some of these states, Illinois is the worst. I think they've only got about 39% of what is needed. Okay, less than 4 cents on less than 40% then, or $4 out of 10 to pay the people that they've already promised to pay. And now, how are they going to continue these services? And this isn't a new problem. It's just it's increasing. And with the pandemic, you've got this being accelerated. This was in 2018, this state pending, this gap. Imagine how much it's grown since then. Investing for shortfalls, and of course now with less revenue coming in this year, the effect that's going to have and how long that might continue. The same thing with Social Security. We're seeing articles here, we're talking about the Social Security Trust Fund, which, as we know, is just, of course, IOUs from Congress, but basically even that, they're talking about becoming depleted 4 years earlier than originally projected because of the pandemic. We're seeing a lot of different things happening that when we look at where's the money going to come from to take care of those things when it comes to the pensions. Social Security is going to have to be fixed. They can't just let it go. So, and we know that's going to be the case. And even when depleted, it means that they would, the trust fund that is, it means that they would still be paying approximately 75% of the benefits, but they need to shore that up. We ran into this when Reagan was president back in the 80s, and they had to fix it at that time. That's when you first started having some of your Social Security benefits being taxed, because the money coming in to pay those Social Security benefits, of course, is payroll taxes, and then taxes on Social Security is another big source of that. In fact, I think it was $650 billion comes in just from taxes on Social Security benefits. All of this to say, what do you think is going to happen? Where's the money going to come from? Of course, it means higher taxes unless we can find some way to grow our way out of this. And this goes to what policies our government leaders are following with regard to fixing these kinds of issues. So they're going to have to address Social Security. They're going to have to find ways to shore that up, bring more money in, and of course be able to continue the promises they've made to all of us that we've paid into for our entire working lives. They will find a way to do that, and some of that we already know. They're going to be talking about ways to the taxation we mentioned. 50% of your benefits could be taxed. That was passed back in, as I mentioned, when they fixed it back in the 80s. Then again, when Clinton was president, they had now up to 85% of your benefits can be taxed. There's what's called a provisional income formula that determines how much of their tax, or how much of your Social Security benefits is going to be taxed. All of this is about planning. Okay, there are ways that you can reduce your taxes, minimize your taxes, and it's not just minimizing taxes during your lifetime, right? We also want to take care of our families, so when it comes to legacy planning, this kind of flows into that as well. That's why we talk about things like Roth conversions. All right, here's a way that we can potentially reduce taxes over your lifetime. We may increase them a little bit up front to decrease them considerably over your lifetime, and then also to make sure, I mean, when you think about it, when you do a will or a trust, who is it you want as your beneficiary? Your family. So it's not the IRS, right? If the last person we want in there is the IRS. So do we want it, with good planning, we can minimize and maybe even eliminate how much tax is going to the IRS and keep that in the family. All right, that's our goal. So we're going to be talking about, first off, the foundation, some foundational documents. In my book, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom in Retirement, I talk about, in Chapter 7, it's on estate planning and the 5 essential documents that form the foundation of a good estate plan. And that would be, of course, your revocable living trust, power of attorney for assets, power of attorney for health care, pour-over will, and a living will. And to help me with that today, to discuss these things, someone I've been working with for a good many years, has helped me with a lot of clients, and good friend, special guest, Jack McCann, with McCann and Hubbard over in Cool Springs. He's right near Cool Springs Mall, in fact. And Jack, you've been doing this for a lot of years. One of the things that we talk about is these, about probate, and I'm going to, in particular, have you talk about what probate means. So as you deal with wills and trusts, you know the differences here. And what would a typical probate case look like when someone comes into your office and they just lost a spouse or a parent, and they're here's the will, what do we do next?
Yeah, I appreciate you leading me into that, and thanks for letting me be here today. The first thing I tell families when I get a call about probate is focus on the funeral, focus on the family first. It's kind of shocking to me sometimes. I get calls the day that somebody passed away or the day after somebody passed away, and they're worried about the will and the accounts. The government, the banks, everybody else knows that we are entitled to a grieving period. So there's no emergency at that moment. Now, you can't let it sit for 5 or 6 weeks. You have to get onto things after a few weeks. But the first thing is to focus on the funeral, focus on the family, and focus on the arrangements. After that, then it's very common where I end up on a conference call or having people to my office. It's not like in the movies. We don't need everybody in the family to come in for a will reading. Usually it's just the person who's going to be the decision maker or the top few people are going to be decision makers, and I'll meet with them and we'll go over the will or trust or whatever documents there are. And then we talk about, I tell them, get out a legal pad and just make a list. We want to know all the assets. We want to know how they were titled, if they have a death beneficiary on them, who the death beneficiary is, and then all the debts. And so, the assets are not only your jewelry and your car and your personalty at home, but it's also all the different accounts. And this is where people have a difficult time nowadays. So much of what we do is online, and banks are buying banks and names are changing. So I always tell people, keep sort of a cheat sheet of what your assets are, because your spouse or your children probably don't know, or they know a lot of it, maybe 70% of it, maybe 80% of it. A lot of times even the financial advisor doesn't know everything, all the assets that a person has. So it would help your family out if you have some sort of a cheat sheet, some sort of a financial statement, even if it's not a fancy one. It can be one that you've made yourself, but just itemize all those different things, have that in with your important papers. And in today's world, I say include in that list your usernames and your passwords for your different accounts. Now, obviously, this is going to be kept in a place where it's confidential. You don't want anybody to be able to get to that accidentally, but there's going to come a time when they need to get to that. And I've had people say, well, I don't want anyone to be able to get in my account. Well, if you go in the hospital and you've got all your bills set up to be paid online, how are they going to pay those bills? They've got to be able to get online to do that. So you need to be able to put it down someplace where they can get in there and pay the cable bill and the electric bill and the insurance, house payment if you've got one. So there's a lot of little details that you need to have available for those people, and no one else can put that together except for you. So that's the place to start. We talk about failing to have a plan. That's failing to have a plan right there. It makes things a lot easier if you planned ahead and put this stuff down, and you can do it over time. It's not like you have to spend the rest of today working on that, but you could get started today and work on it over the next couple of weeks and have a good itemization and cheat sheet available for your family.
It's just part of being organized. And one of the things when we talk about this, of course, this is where estate planning, having that piece done. And what happens in the estate planning process is basically we're helping you get organized. All right, because we are gathering those things up to do the estate plan. We need to know about the assets. We need to know, for instance, with real estate, things that you're going to need to have organized and listed out for your estate plan. In fact, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to delve into this in more detail about the kinds of things, the checklists that you would use, and to get that done, and how we work. I know with my clients, how we work with our clients as far as helping them get organized, have all that in order. Now you've got the peace of mind. Everything's is ready, no matter what life's going to throw your way. All right, but first we're going to take a break, then we'll get into that. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.